that four hands.
Four hands. Shabbat shalom to you, sir.
Hey, brother. Fantastic job, brother. Honestly, like really fantastic job. You know, not to sound the trumpet for you, but you know, I think you're giving a really good framework, I think, for people, really with the goal of giving people peace, you know, because, you know, Curtis and I, community, just so you know, Curtis and I have this running joke that one day, even state of affairs will become null and void, you know, because things are going to happen at such a breakneck speed that it's going to be literally one thing after another, boom, boom, boom. You know, I think of a logarithmic curve going up, and as we start to escalate, it's just going to quicken and quicken. But a teaching like this series and where I know it's headed from our discussions, like I can see it giving that framework that it allows people to put things within a biblical framework, and that should give people a lot of peace and take away a lot of the doubt and confusion. You know, we don't know all the details, like the gory little details, so to speak, but we do have a framework. And once you have that biblical framework and a sure foundation, it should give you peace as things do happen. Like, I do see this series not as a knowledge venture, but actually as an equipping, so that we can have peace, so that we can get on with the job at hand. Because if these things be so, as we're putting forward, there's going to be more important things to be focused on, as opposed to, you know, what the White House is doing, what the Middle East is doing, all these things, because there's going to be people that are fearful, very fearful. In fact, it's already happening, and that's only going to get worse. And so hopefully an equipping series like this actually helps us to be usable boots on the ground, so to speak. So thank you, brother, honestly.
I appreciate your words, Michael. It's not easy to take something in such a big spectrum. But again, I didn't come up with it. You know, Messiah did. He came up with the framework. It's just whether we can see it in a way. I mean, you know, we've got from, you know, the Torah itself, the great prophets, the disciples, what was penned on the island of Revelation from John himself, and of course, nothing greater than the words of Messiah. It should be impossible to take all of these components and confirmation and witnesses to each other, and it's so cohesively come into understanding it from a SEAL's perspective, unless it was true. No. It should be impossible to do, you know, and yet we can. And so, why are we surprised? Well, we shouldn't be, right? You know, this is why we were given it, and it's given to us to have hope, and as the world loses its shalom, that we may not. You know, that no matter what happens, that it's not taken from us, that we have the Ruach, that we have this assurance, and we understand the why of it and these sorts of things. Because you're right, Michael, it'll get to a point where, I mean, we could be doing a state of affairs every week right now at the speed it is. And so it was a matter of us going, let's go back up. Let's see it the way Messiah wanted us to, why he gave us these things, why it's mattered to all the generations that preceded us, and most certainly why it matters now as we come to the end of the age. And if we can have a balanced and biblical perspective based on hope, grounded in love and repentance, then it's possible we might just got a chance at being a light during all of this. And it's just possible that there's a great harvest coming out of all of this, and that we may be included to be a part of it. And so we don't want to forget the why, because the why ultimately comes with being set free from bondage and and having the hope of the great plan of redemption and the fulfillment of his great plan as a part of the appointed times. And so the why matters, not just the what. And even though we looked at some whats today, because we're looking at present, and that, there's that exegesis and the eisegesis, aspect of trying to deal with revelation and everything coming at us. But if we just get up in that helicopter and go, okay, we can look at what's going on right now, but let's not do it at the expense of where it's pointed to in the future, how it's been given from a past perspective. Let's just not just get caught up that, the Roman leaders and those which Elohim is allowing to be in the beast system. It's why our battle's not against flesh and blood. And we're actually to pray for these people. We're actually to pray for those that are, and we're reminded our battle's not against flesh and blood, but against principalities and spirits in high places. And what's a part of this, we need to not make our faith about relying on those who are struggling in the beast system and losing their way, and those leaders. We need to pray for them and know that our hope needs to be now in Messiah, and now needs to be in his plan, and now needs to, be in that space. And this is the main reason to be biblical and not political at this time. If politics is shaping our faith, we can get caught up in stuff that we shouldn't. But if we're staying to the biblical perspective, it will always come with that hope and shalom and understanding of the why of it all. And if we're just focused on political beast system right now, what a nightmare, for people to just live in that space, and their only hope relies on what the head of the EU is doing, or the United Nations, or the White House, or probably. If that's where your hope is right now, it's just one of those things. So hopefully we can be a people that go, you know what? We're not going to let Roman politics decide our faith. We're going to actually let the more sure word and the hope and the plan of redemption decide our faith. And I think that that's really why we're given what we're given from the King for us now at this time. And quite frankly, I'm appreciative that he has. Because if we had to view the world right now without the word, that would be really not a good place. And we have many people around us in our world who are in exactly that space. They don't have any of the hope and understanding that we have of the why. They're right now grappling day to day, watching their mainstream media, their news feeds, their social media. They're watching, and they just, what do I do with this? And they have nowhere to ground it. And so we want to be the people that can give an account for the hope that's within us. And that's the reason why I believe that he's given us this greater perspective from outside the time domain, that there's a king on the throne, and, I've got this. We might have some rough waters going on right now, but I got this. I don't know about you, but I'm quite thankful more and more for the word right now, Michael. Because we'd be trying to figure that we'd just be broadcasting. It'd be all just newspapers,
Yeah.
Like, okay, yeah, we'll take a look at the latest, but there's a bigger picture. So, Michael Townsend.
Yes, sir.
Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom.
How are you, sir?
Not bad. How are you?
Not bad, not bad. You doing okay?
Yeah, doing good. Just resting on Shabbat. Of course, I got the cat on my lap, so. So I had a question in regards to Revelation. Talk about the red horse. Is there any connection between Revelation 6 and Ephesians 6 when it talks about the armor of God, and how that the gospel of peace is the way we protect ourselves from peace being taken away?
Really good point. Really good point. I won't dwell on this much more than just agreeing with you, in my opinion. If Yah sees it in his will for us to be around for this in its fullest extent, then suddenly it's not just a little childhood kindergarten, I'm going to put on the shield, and I'm going to put on my little helmet. And you're literally knowing that if we grow to Messiah and the hope and the love and the wisdom that sits in that, then there is a protection that comes with the armor of Elohim. And I like how you've actually linked that to it, because shalom, in my opinion, is going to be 100,000% linked to the armor of Elohim as we start to experience these things more and more. So thank you for making that connection, Michael.
Yeah, of course.
What's really interesting as well is when you look at the fruit of the Spirit, shalom is not one you can manufacture or counterfeit. You cannot, like, people can manufacture patience. They can manufacture joy, right? You can put on this appearance. Peace, you can't manufacture it. You either have it or you don't. And it's very evident by what comes out of someone's mouth and the actions and decisions they make. And so, absolutely, you know, and when you understand that peace being taken from the earth Hebraically is linked to shalom, and that's been taken away, well, what is the only source of shalom? You know, there's a reason why Messiah is called the Prince of Peace, the Sach Shalom. You know, he is our peace. And if you truly have a biblical understanding of the plan of redemption, like, why would the apostles go willingly at the pain of death to do what they needed to do? They understood the big picture. They had total peace to just put one step forward and keep going. And so I believe you're absolutely right, Michael.
Awesome. Thank you for answering my question.
Yeah, no question. Thank you, brother. Appreciate you.
You too.
There's a weightier matter.
Sure is, because that's what this is really all about. I don't think we're going to be getting a lot of shalom from the AI super intelligence in the future. So we better have the Ruach reaching, and that's the one place Hasatan doesn't get to play with. So we want to be receptors for the Ruach when we move forward. And I think that's where our shalom really will be. You know, we may be surprised how much shalom is actually possible with that connection to the Ruach, even given some of the events we touched on today. Certainly, like you say, Michael, it was certainly with the early Kahal and the disciples, for sure. So, okay. Who do we got here? We have got Shane. Shabbat shalom, brother.
Shabbat shalom. Hey,
How are
Shabbat
ya?
shalom, brothers and all the assembly. Hey, that's so funny to Michael, and then you mentioned it about state of affairs, because the last couple I was sitting here thinking it's like Revelation / state of affairs, Ruach led super teaching, you know. It's been wonderful and insightful, and thank you. My question is, maybe you can help me be a better teacher in my home. Coincidentally, a couple of weeks before you started this, we started reading through the book of Revelation, kids' request. So that was beautiful. And so in Revelation 12, it says, you know, he was kicked out of heaven. Hasatan was kicked out of heaven. And I'm also to the understanding that, you know, he answers to the throne and the enemy's in the mirror, and that's me. But where would that put him now? I know and it's funny because just a week ago we read a chapter out of John 14 where my daughter asked, "Well, was that Yeshua talking?" And you know, and I said, "Well, he was talking about the ruler of this world," because she thought, you know, Yeshua was ruler of all. And so I'm just trying to provide more understanding, and I don't want to sound like I'm coming off like I understand, because I'm asking you elders, but like. I understand that's the judgment, that's the day, you know, pronounced for him to be kicked out, and that's the event. But and I know he's not a sentient, or he's just a sentient being and not omnipresent, but where would that leave him now? As opposed, would that just be him the day, like I'm saying, him getting kicked out, the pronounced day that he's kicked out of heaven? Do you kind of understand what I'm asking?
Yeah, I think I get where you're coming from.
Where does that leave him now? Just like, I know he's not here in my house, you know.
Yeah.
The enemy's in there.
Yeah. The devil's not making you do everything wrong every day, Shane.
Yeah.
But in saying that, this is a powerful sentient being that is manipulating and deceiving the governments of the world right now. The most deceived people in the world right now are the elite. are the leaders of the world. See, they don't have access to any of this wisdom of the Ruach or anything like that. And this is why we're to pray for them. And it's why we're to be a light and a hope to them, because they actually are the most deceived. And they may think they're the most enlightened, or that they might have the control and all that, but we know that eventually they lose grip on all of this. And so when we have that perspective, suddenly it's not like, oh, I can't stand what they're doing to me here. Oh, look what they're doing to me now. Oh, and all of our focus is on a beast system struggling to cope without a connection to Elohim, without the Ruach, without wisdom. It doesn't have any of these things. So why are we surprised it's ending up in 10 toes? Clay mixed with iron. It's fragile. It's not working. It's not going to hold up all the empires that came before to the world. It's all coming down. And so this whole thing of looking at it in a sense suddenly, and I know this might sound weird, but you can almost get to a point where you feel sorry for them, not just frustrated by them, that you actually realize they have no hope. They have no shalom. They have no wisdom of Elohim. They have no context of a greater situation. They're literally struggling, and as things get worse and worse and worse, more control, arms race, do this, do that. And it's just literally, we're just seeing it play out, because it will get to such a point where they're going to need a false Messiah. Now, enters your question, the answer to your question. Is he right now having a hard time dealing with Michael and the messengers in a battle above our heads right now? Some would think maybe that's happening right now. Are we there yet with that? Right now, from what we understand, at least to scripture, is that the adversary has interdimensional capabilities. He can come before the throne and he can come to the earth. And so can the fallen angels, and so can the messengers that haven't fallen. So you've got a true messenger realm going on that is including both of these components. The adversary, who's got access and has to answer to the throne, there is a point that's recorded, and that was when that, in that time domain interlude that Messiah did with Daniel, that seems to be describing, and then Revelation confirms it, that there's going to be a time when the orders are, and it may be that moment with Daniel where this event was occurring outside the time domain. So it's sort of, you're seeing like a time travel go on when you go back into Daniel. It's very interesting what was actually going on during that time. And then you see this in Revelation pop up going, gee whiz, was this, and so it's quite an incredible picture, but we're trapped in the time domain, so we see everything linear according to our moments in the time, right? But if you could come outside the time domain, which only he can do, he's the only one that knows the beginning from the end. Not even Hasatan can do this. Is it possible that he could give prophecy? See, who's the one who knows the beginning from the end? He makes it clear. I am Elohim. He sits on the throne. So this is why we should take great comfort and hope with this, that he's got a Elohim capability that now nothing else has. So that's number one. So are we looking at, when you're asking the question, what you're referring to in Revelation, it's saying there's going to be a moment where no longer even the adversary and these fallen angels are going to have the ability to come in and out of the time domain themselves, interdimensionally. They're not going to be able to do this. So you've got control of the future, past, present, future, Elohim King. Then you've got interdimensional beings that are serving. At some point in Revelation, there's going to be a casting down. And they are literally going to lose that interdimensional capability. And the world is now going to face a third of the fallen angels and Hasatan. Now, they are no longer able to come before the throne to do this. It's literally making the point. Michael seems, and his messengers seem to be instructed to deal with this. You're now going to lose your access to the heavenlies. As a result of this, what Michael and I talk about and what we try to bring forth is that there's going to have to be an explanation to the world. If there is a casting down of a third of the angel, there has to be something other than, hey, Satan's here, I'm really evil, worship me, right? Even the most diehard atheist at that point might go, I'm not comfortable with that, right? So you have to deceive the world. And what we're saying is AI one of the final reflections of creating the groundwork for him to remain in a false Elohim state? In other words, to be able to present himself and the others as gods. And is it possible that we've seen the groundwork laid for all of this ahead of time so that when the event occurs, right? See, if it had occurred already, we would know is where we come from. Okay, this event, it's big. It's a big event. So you either have an explanation for it or you're Hasatan and you're just hoping for the best. I don't think he's hoping for the best. I think that this is a very powerful, sentient being that's heading an office of adversarial role for the purpose of sifting, for the purpose of actually doing Yah's will, that actually knows what it's doing. And it knows that this time's coming, and he knows that his time is short. So it's preparing the groundwork ahead of time for this. And is it going to use the B system, which he's been influencing this whole time, to prepare that groundwork? I would say almost certainly. So you'd be doing that historically, you would be doing that militarily, politically, culturally. Like you see, he's laying the groundwork. He knows this event is coming himself. So I would say we're not dealing with the fact that this event has happened. Are we getting closer to it? We believe we are, and possibly in our lifetimes, maybe even easily within our lifetimes. So something's coming where no longer can these things do what they've been allowed to do by Elohim for the purpose of fulfilling the great plan of redemption. There is a point where it gets capped. We also see this in the millennial reign, by the way, where he actually gets shut away for 1,000 years. So it's demonstrating Elohim power over his creation, right? No matter how powerful the sentient being of the adversary is, he's not omnipresent. He's not Elohim. He answers exactly to what the king says. Do you see what I mean? And so we're seeing this demonstration that way. I'm going to let Michael chime in on this.
Yeah, I mean, to make the point of this is going to be a big event, to use the Ezekiel passage, speaking of the king of Tyre, but then it goes to this kind of allusion to the adversary who was in Eden. And Ezekiel, through the prophet Ezekiel, it calls him a cherub. It doesn't even call him an angel. It calls him a cherub. Now, we know there's 4 of those around the throne, which we would know as the cherubim, the living creatures. Hasatan seemed to have been one of those. We don't even know what those things look like. Like, we just don't. This is not even an angel. Like, so, to kind of take a center line on this, like a biblical perspective, yes, Elohim is in control. And yes, the adversary has to answer to the throne. But let's not forget he's a cherub as well. And in fact, the oracle of Ezekiel goes as far as to saying you were the sum of perfection. When you look at the Hebrew there, it says you were the pattern. This is arguably at the time, the most powerful sentient being. And so whatever that looks like, it's going to blow our minds. And then you see the preparation that's been laid, as Curtis said, historically, now in popular culture, and Curtis has spoken at length about this in things like Messiah deception and what could that possibly look like. Yeah. I believe the adversary is going to make use of every little possible thing he can to announce his coming. And he's been laying the groundwork for a very long time. Understanding that he's had interdimensional capabilities until this casting down actually answers a lot of the questions of what you would see maybe even in ancient Mesopotamian records. You hear this stuff of gods coming down, the Greek myths, and, how could this be done? Well, if you've got interdimensional capabilities, very simply, actually, very simply, but that's going to be taken away. And so again, just ask yourself, what has been the groundwork laid? This is why I'm of the same opinion as Curtis. Within the time linear domain, we're yet to see this, because something as big as a cherub and a third of the angels coming down into this realm, that's pretty big. That's really big. And even with the great myths of old, of God, so-called gods and so-called this and that, it doesn't capture a cherub and a third of the angelic host being in our time domain. Now, what Curtis was saying, is this happening outside of time or in this interdimensional space? Yes. And so really the question you're asking is, when within the linear time domain does this show up? And I believe your question will be answered in the last part of this series. But think of where the four horses are leading to. They're going to cross a finishing line and give birth to something, right? Which Curtis will cover in part 5. And when you look at the cumulative effect of these first 4 seals, it says like it's either a third or a quarter of mankind is gone, dead. And so do we need will the world need a Messiah? Shane, hold that question, I would say, actually, towards probably the last part of this series. But yeah, the simple answer, we believe it's yet to happen. Has the groundwork been laid for it? We believe so. What's it going to look like? I think it's going to surpass all our expectations.
I think Messiah Deception Part 6, it is.
But I'll finish with this. An event such as big as this, could you now maybe start to understand as to how the true naos, dwelling place of Elohim, could be defiled? If we know that our hearts are the naos, imagine if that shows up in all its so-called splendor and so-called glory. I can see how even believers could be deceived by this and go, "Huh."
Yeah. We're seeing, as somebody mentioned here, and quite rightly so, the modern entertainment has just been pushing with Marvel and DC Comics, and everything is about these gods from, interacting with us from outside our earth. And you look at the groundwork that's being prepped. So it's educating these younger generations, not the more sure word, right? And so anything that comes even close to the only thing they can conceive as heroes come from outside the earth, its effect and its cumulative effect is huge. And so we look at this and go, "Oh, Superman's just a harmless movie." Or, all the DC comic books and all this kind of thing. I just think they're bad movies now, and they're just relying on CGI anyway. But the reality of it is that it's just sowing this superhero thing. Is that a coincidence that it's on steroids right as we're coming? Maybe not, right? And so this is a very interesting thing. And so we're seeing a lot of things coming together at one time. And, again, we'll talk more about this. But I think really what the scripture is warning about is a false Messiah and us believing in it. In fact, if you even look at the ancient scriptures and how it talks about at this time, that I am in the midst of Israel. Now, if that's not just a political landmass or even the promised land in its fulfillment, then how are you in the midst of Israel? Well, you see how the early Kahal understood what the midst is a relationship to the Holy of Holies. Well, where is the true Holy of Holies? See, how can he be in the midst of Israel if it's scattered at the time of these events? And so there's indications here that's telling you and maybe possibly leading to where the true abomination of desolation occurs. And it must be at the heart level. And so we've got all these hermeneutics that are, okay, this has got to happen, this has got to do, and everybody's looking for these things. And yet what we actually are reading could be possibly there's no room for the true living Elohim in your heart because your mind has been deceived. And is it possible this is what we're actually, going to face? Could it be that great? And so while we're all looking for the politics to fulfill Bible prophecy, we're taken like a thief in the night because we haven't anchored ourselves in an understanding the marriage covenant and how that relates to the appointed times and how the appointed times are all speaking about Messiah and the great plan of redemption. What truly this is all about, that this is at the heart level and all these, and then we just ignore all this stuff. No, we're going to wait for the beast system to fulfill Bible prophecy. And it's like, well, it's impossible for it to. It can be allowed to do things that are a part of it. Do you see what I mean? But we're literally looking for the beast system to fulfill so why are we looking to the beast? Why aren't we looking to the king and the more sure word? How did this happen with biblical hermeneutics, with Bible prophecy, with how we were taught all the leaven factory and what it gave to us and how we're supposed to view things? Modern day eschatology and Bible hermeneutics has made the vast portion of believers on earth politically. The political lens is how they view their faith. It's not the biblical. That is a sleight of hand and the greatest deception, I believe, and Michael believes, that we're seeing on the earth right now, because they're not looking to the prophetic word. They are looking to the beast system.
Or the harlot.
Or the harlot as to where we're at. Yeah. It's a sleight of hand on a grand scale.
Yeah. I mean, if you're not waiting for the beast system to fulfill it, on the other side, people are... I'm going to go there. People are waiting for temples and ritual sacrifices or whatever version of Mystery Babylon you've been entertaining prophetically. And so it's like, again, it's this whole thing. The enemy's gone, I want you to look here and don't look over here, because the thing that nobody is looking at is what's going to drive Bible prophecy, not the other way around.
If you can define how you want somebody to look at something before you do something, they will interpret it the way you manipulated it to be. They think it's their own thoughts. Do you see what I mean? But then if you know you're going to go do something, well ahead of time, I need these people to see it this way. Now, politicians are generally experts at this, right? And this is what happens, right? But this is now at a grander cosmic scale. And he's doing the exact same thing. I'm going to teach you what to look for. Or the king and the Ruach will show us an understanding of what to look for. You got your choice. You see what I mean? And so much of Mystery Babylon has shaped the understanding of the believer. I want you to see it this way, and then I can make it happen like the magician's other hand in the beast system. You see what I mean? And then this is Bible prophecy, right? And this is what it's doing. And it's literally, it's self-fulfilling. I can shape it and shape your view of how to look at it. But when you get out of this and get out of her and just get back and look at this, suddenly you realize that it's actually talking about that's what he's going to do to you. So it's a very interesting thing. He's going to deceive the whole world. How does something achieve that as a powerful as it may be, single sentient being? You tell me how you deceive believers and the whole world as a single sentient being, unless you're using fallen man and you're using the beast system and the harlot exactly described in Scripture in order to achieve it. Do you see what I mean? Like there's no other way it can be done because he's not omnipresent.
AI and aliens.
Yeah, like this is where you look at things and it's like, okay, what possibly could he use as a part of this deceiving the whole world? And so we talk about these things. But the great thing about it is that this whole discussion and indeed this whole series and all the stuff we're dealing with, it's impossible. It should be impossible to take the word and have this discussion unless it was true. unless there really is a king that sits outside the time domain that's got control of this whole thing. The high and lofty one is his line of sight is far better than ours. And all he's doing with something like today is just going, I'll just give you a little peek of being in the helicopter. You get to look out the window for a sec. But he is way higher. And it is way bigger. Do you see what I mean? We're getting a chance. And he's saying, I give this to you for our sake, so that you may have shalom, you may have hope, you may understand. And this is the way we should have understood Bible prophecy. But instead, we've gotten caught up with the horror Hollywood show and UFOs, aliens, whatever, and DC Comics and whatnot. And then we all blame the White House for what's going on next. And that's biblical prophecy, apparently, now. So we want to get ourselves into that healthier, more adult space spiritually. And so that's... Michael and I aren't claiming that we can't do it better, but we're trying the best we can to try and get, because we just don't want to reinvent it. He gave it in the way of seals. He gave it in these ways. He gave these it's like we don't get to just change it, and to suit our eschatology. It's like, no, he needs to define our eschatology. And so that's what we're allowing. Is if we repent, he's go, okay, you show us how we're supposed to understand this. And so we're doing our best. We wouldn't claim, neither Michael or I would go, oh yeah, we've got it all sorted. We know everything, We still are, we have to let we don't know the future. We have to let details unfold, like some of the things we mentioned. But it is amazing when you can view it the way a loving king and bridegroom Messiah gave us these things, like he worked through the great Apostle John on the island of Patmos, the way he worked with Daniel, the way he worked with these great prophets, the way he's worked in the Torah, the way that he worked with the early Kahal. You kind of think, maybe he cares about us just as much as he did them. And maybe the Ruach's the same Ruach almost 2,000 years ago as it is now. And maybe we have the same king that we had then now on the throne. And maybe we've got the same plan of redemption that's in play now as it was then. And maybe we should remember these things. This is a good time to remember these things. And so there is a time when the Spirit and the bride say, come. It's a joint thing. Okay, come. And we'll get there. We will get there where we actually go, we don't love our lives unto death now. And this world kind of sucks. But we have hope. We have joy. We know what's happening. And that's what people are going to see, because it will surpass all understanding. It's like Michael was alluding to. It can't be faked. True shalom can't be faked. So we want to be in a place where that maybe is what the Ruach can give us, if we are indeed to live some of these things out in our lifetime, and we believe it to be most surely possible at this point. So, what we're doing desperately is to not get off the weightier matter, which is repentance, and to understand heart circumcision, all the things we focus on as a wider community. But at the same time, we also need to know all the things we talked about today are also there for our heart circumcision, for shalom, for our peace, right? If you were living it,
Understanding.
Yeah. So.
Oh, wow. Thank you so much. And I love you, brother, so much. Thank you so much. Bless your hearts. Thank you.
Thank you, Shane. Bless you, brother. Michael, you will get the final word for today.
There's another hand up.
Oh, is there? No, that's still up. We've already spoken to Michael.
No, that's Michelle.
Oh, Michelle, hold on. You there, Michelle?
Shabbat shalom.
Sorry, Shabbat shalom.
That's okay.
My fault.
No problem.
Curtis has been up late, so you'll have to excuse him.
Yeah, no, I understand. I just want to start by saying how much I appreciate the two of you, and how much your ministries have blessed me. And just thank you. My question is not a profound why question. It's more of a what question regarding the Gog and Magog war. When I read Ezekiel 38, it's in the context of peace and safety, no walled villages, and I don't see that over in the Middle East, and I don't even know how that would even occur. And then it happens again in Revelation, right? In Revelation 20, it refers to at the end of the millennial reign during the rebellion, Gog and Magog war. So are there two Gog and Magogs, or is it just one, and it's going to happen at the end of the millennial reign and not currently?
Okay, I'll be real quick on this, and I'll let Michael chime in. Remember, I mentioned sometimes, Rochelle, things are conspicuous by their absence.
Mm-hmm.
And when you're reading that, what is interesting, this is why I said, is it possible that what we're seeing in the Magog invasion will eventually involve an exchange of weaponry? And when it talks about the unwalled village and that was in peace and safety, is it possible that's the coastlands? Is it possible it's us? Because if Israel is a people, then you know that we've been scattered to the four corners of the earth. Do you see the language now, how it can change? Is it possible?
So I kind of missed, I didn't connect that dot when you were talking about that.
And this is what happens. If it's only just a political nation on earth right now and not a people, then suddenly these things are, but suddenly when it's a people that have been scattered to the four corners, are there parts of Israel, particularly Ephraim and Manasseh, the sons of Yaakov, is it possible that they've been dwelling? And actually, it's fulfilling promises that they would become the most prosperous, and that there was this double portion that was going to be given to Yaakov. And then it says, but right at the end, there's a time of Yaakov's troubles, and there might be some lean times. We're going to talk about that. And so it's very interesting. How could that come about? And so is it possible that this Magog invasion, that it will bring about that very thing, if we understand who and what true biblical Israel is in the sense of a people? I'm not taking away that true biblical Israel is not in the modern state of Israel, and that the modern state of Israel isn't a portion of the true promised lands as they will be. What I'm saying is that it's bigger. This is global in its context, and we're often just reading either it's all about me or it's all about them. We're not actually being honest, intellectually honest, or scholastically honest when it comes to the prophecies of Torah and how history is played out. And unless we choose to do that, we will find ourselves being led all over the place. So it's a very good question you've raised, because it's actually a part of understanding why I just reiterated again. Please understand, we're looking at prophecies from the position of Israel as a people. And we believe that Israel is a people defined by Scripture that is promised a land. And so we need to make these distinctions, because it's often referring to Israel, the people, and we know that they're scattered. So that's why I linked it to that. Is it possible, when you look at the prophets now are talking about fire being sent on the coastlands as a part of this Magog invasion, do we have the technological capability to do a weapons exchange upon the face of the earth? And the answer to that is, we're the first time in human history that I believe what you're reading in these prophets is even possible. To send fire on the coastlands. You see, it's a very interesting, these are statements of technology hidden within the prophecies. So this is very, 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 very good question. As for your Gog Magog and thing, it does appear at the end of the 1,000-year reign that that this part of the world, those nations, may once again find themselves in a little bit of trouble in a deceptive form. So it's, you think of it as it's identifying regions of the world. There is a last great day. There's a 1,000-year reign of Messiah, and there will be regions of the world that falter at the end, and clearly tells us that right at the end. They will be deceived once again. It appears it's highlighting a portion, at least, at that time, that will once again be deceived, the nations being deceived by the letting loose of Hasatan, to deceive the nations one final time for one final testing. And it does appear that this area of the world is being mentioned again at that time in Revelation. Michael, over to you. I've done the best I can. That was a good question.
Yeah, to the peace and safety thing, again, like if you Curtis and I believe that the British Commonwealth, by and large, UK, New Zealand, portions of South Africa, you could argue, but then the US and Canada would come from that as well, because all you guys came from the UK at some point. You know, again, it fits the prophecies and the migrations of Ephraim and Manasseh to the wealth. And I mean, right now, the city I live in, I'm on the very edge of the city. I don't see any walls. I live in peace. Mm-hmm. And in fact, one of the prevailing things that happens in the West is the West has got no concept that peace is even under threat. You know, like, so I think it's actually a really bold statement when it says, you know, that shalom will be taken from the earth. But like we in the West have no concept of what it's like to live like in a fair place in terms of war, generally speaking. You know, maybe some of the older generations do, but right now I'm scattered to the four corners of the earth. I live in a city where there's peace and there's no walls. Yeah. Like in ancient times, you've got to remember that a city with no walls was actually vulnerable. But we're now in a time where you can have no walls and be safe. Like to an ancient, that would have seemed really weird because of how things were in their time. So again, like, this is one of these things when you start to think of Israel as a people and you bring in the scattering to all four corners of the earth into that, it doesn't redefine prophecy. The problem is that man has been busy trying to redefine it itself. And so the statements like these, you know, like Curtis said, we either make it all about us or all about them, not this in between, this in the river perspective that actually it's everybody.
Right. So yeah. One of the things, and I'm sorry to interrupt. You know, so many of the prophecies are regarding the land there, Damascus, Jerusalem. So I guess that's kind of why I kind of associated that.
And you should. That's why I said perhaps we're dealing with both, and most assuredly we are. In fact, it makes distinctions concerning prophecies concerning Jerusalem itself and the other ancient lands. It often surprises people when I say, you know, it's like we are for our brothers and sisters in the modern state of Israel. Right now, we personally believe all 12 tribes are actually in there. Now, whether they know that they are of that or not is another matter. But they're also in all the surrounding nations. And brother will slay brother in the end. We're actually seeing it scattered all through. We're literally going to see something play out on earth where brother will slay brother. It doesn't know. It's forgotten the prophecies. It's forgotten their Elohim. It's forgotten. And so we are to pray for the modern state of Israel in the sense of its people. We are to pray for its leaders that it may operate in wisdom, but we're to pray for the Palestinians. We're to pray for the great Persian Empire. My goodness, this is a rich people for which even the descendants of Daniel were coming from. And then the Parthian Empire, like these are great, rich cultures and people, and all scattered throughout the Middle East is the 12 tribes of the house of Israel. And so what we're doing is, well, you got to be Democrat or Republic. You got to be conservative or liberal. Oh, you got to be, you know, this or that, and how you look at it. And it's like, no, we're going to be honest with what the word's saying. Our brethren are scattered throughout the earth right now. And is it possible we're seeing brother slay brother? Is it possible that this is actually exactly the scriptures are that literal? But we have forgotten. There are many people in the bigger, larger Middle East that are right now accepting Messiah. And it is possible that even though you can't do the traces of the physical DNA lineage of which tribe they linked back to over thousands of years, they themselves are coming back into the house of Israel through the blood of the King. And if we forget this, if we get caught up in just the political, we could start making our brethren our enemy, whether that be in the modern state of Israel or whether it be in Jordan, or whether it be in Russia, or whether it be in America. Do you see how we could get caught in a political mindset and not a biblical one? It means what it says and says what it means. Brother will slay brother, and it will be deceived into doing so. We don't just get to nitpick and cherry pick and whatnot. When I see those who are against the modern state of Israel and they're all this and that and whatnot, I'm going, you're against your brother. When I see them all blaming, Egypt or Jordan or Iraq, all right, you're brother against brother. Like, stop it. We're supposed to be the people of his kingdom, which means the house of Israel, which means we must take seriously and literally in context all of the word. And so when I see people, involved with whether it be anti-Semitism or it be anti-Muslim or whether it be anti-Christian, I'm sorry. You're falling into the brother will slay brother realm. Once you're the house of Israel, whoa, now we're answering to a king. And a king that has done something on a global level, who's king of the earth, who's carrying out his plan of redemption to the four corners. And that is the place we never want to forget. This is at a king level. We're coming into a kingdom, and he's wanting us to reevaluate whatever position or programming or understanding that's been given from the beast system or Mystery Babylon. We are to pray for that which we see as our enemy. Why? Why are we instructed to do that? There's reason, because we could be praying for our own brethren, whether they are in the modern state of Israel right now, or whether they're Palestinians, or whether they're Iran, or whether they're Iraq. What are we doing cheering on all this stuff? We have to be in the bigger spectrum. We have an Elohim, and his blood, as far as I'm aware, Michael, his blood covered the missing the mark of everyone. But not everyone in the end will repent and come back into the house. We don't get to decide which that is, and I don't care where they're geographically located right now. So I don't tolerate any of it. I don't tolerate anti-Christian. I don't tolerate anti-Muslim. I don't tolerate anti-Jewish. I don't tolerate any of it. Now, are some cultures and some religions, I think, much more in line and favorable to the word? Yes. But I'm not joining. You have a beast system and a Mystery Babylon system that's telling you must be Republican or Democrat. You must be conservative or liberal. You must. You cannot think for yourself. Sorry, I'm going to get all worked up here. Great question, though. Thank you, Michelle. Michael, you will have the last word. Oh. You can't have the last word if you've been muzzled.
I muted myself because I was coughing and spluttering everywhere.
All right. Okay. Sorry. By the way, Messiah's going to have the last word, but you get the last word for today.
Paul says that the only three things that will ever remain from this whole shebang called time domain is faith, love, and hope. And that the greatest of these is love. Right now, we have a perfect opportunity to exercise faith, love, and hope. The Apostle John said in 1 John that the things of this world will pass away. The lust of the eyes, the lust of the flesh, and the pride of life. But Paul's saying there's three things from this whole thing that will remain. And actually, I'd argue they were there before this whole thing. Faith, love, hope. Right now, we have such an opportunity to put our faith into practice, to know what biblical love is, which ties into what you were saying, brother. Brother against brother. Yeshua says that the love of many shall wax cold. How are we going to be alive? What about hope? Hope Hebraically is a confident knowing and expectation. It's coming. And again, faith is a marriage term, but it's so sure that you can hang your hat on it, which is closely tied to this confident expectation. Faith, love, hope. We now have an opportunity essentially to practice three things that will actually make it out the time domain. kind of makes you think that we're in the world, but not of it. You know, what is to be written on our hearts? What is coming out of this time domain? We're being given an amazing opportunity here. May we grab it by the proverbial horns on the bull of the Aleph.
Yeah, the altar. I had to say the least, eh? Wow. Okay, that was a good word. That was a good word, brother. Yeah. Yeah, and it behooves us all to actually take that and to really just work with it in a way that, look, at the end of the day, we need to be pleasing to the King, not pleasing to whatever hermeneutics has, shaped our, whatever our current understanding is right now on earth. Yeah, we just gotta do it in a way that is pleasing to him. Let's finish with the blessing, eh, Michael? What do you think?
I'll second that.
Okay, all right. Yah will bless you and guard you. Yah will shine his countenance upon you and be gracious to you. Yah will turn his countenance towards you and grant you shalom. What a wonderful way that we can end on shalom. Everyone, may you have a great finish wherever you are in the world. Start, end, wherever you're at, to your Sabbath. And we'll see you here next week in the river. Thank you, Michael, for coming on, being a part of this too. Bless you, brother.
The honor's mine. Thank you.
Shabbat shalom, everyone.